This presentation was developed from work Peter Fairbrother. Peter, are you online?
Yes.
Oh, good. Peter Fairbrother and I have been doing in a research inquiry into the circular economy in housing with the Australian Housing and Urban Research Institute. So it's been developed from that work that we did last year, the year before. And there's a sense of urgency about this, as everybody knows. I think Nature magazine in May said that odds are on that 1.5 degrees global warming will be hit in 2027. Then we're moving into catastrophe. John Bellamy Foster talks about the metabolic rift that we're experiencing from humanity, from the rest of nature. So on both counts, there's an absolute question of urgency around the issue of the just transition. Now, currently, building construction and maintenance practices are a major contributor to both these sides of the ecological crisis, carbon emissions as well as resource consumption. The sector generates about 40% of carbon-related emissions and consumes a similar proportion of global resources. Okay. This presentation focuses on the concept of the circular economy as a response to the second impact of building constructions having on the environment. That's the unsustainable resource side of consumption. And they work off what they call principles in this. I'm sure they'll develop policies and practices and processes. So the circular economy principles, I think most people would know, is eliminate waste and pollution, keep products and materials in use, and regenerate natural systems. For example, the concrete and glass in all buildings, in most buildings at least, is primarily composed of one thing, sand. A 2014 report by the United Nations Environment Programme warned that sand is being extracted at a rate far greater than its renewal and is having a major impact on rivers, on deltas and coastal and marine ecosystems. For instance, Asia's largest winter destination for migratory birds is on the Poyang Lake in China, which is rapidly being destroyed. So there just won't be a place for migratory birds very soon. Now, there's two views of these CE principles. It's a new paradigm that will push the frontiers of environmental sustainability. And there's a massive, sophisticated literature and research relating to this approach of this new paradigm. It focuses on the material and technical processes of change towards circular economy. There's a book to be published next year by Ghosh and colleagues that's 90 chapters long that talks on the life cycle stages of the Indian construction industry, covering project design, material manufacture, construction operation, supply chain collaboration, regulation, the economic and political context, and all the end-of-life issues. Now, counter to that is the position that it's all an overhyped concept dominated by a business-focused narrative of competitive advantage. And we heard comments that were in that line previously from Darren. And current research in building construction is dominated by this sort of top-down, technological, slow, piecemeal approach that is not going to do the job. Now, there's prospects for alternative business models that have mooted through all of this, but what is not at their centre are the social relations of the production of construction, the workforce issues, and in fact, the just transition issues. And so whatever view is taken, whether take the cynical view or the idealistic view it doesn't actually really matter, does it? Because the more pressing problem is how to implement these CEPs and who's going to do it and who's going to do it in a timely manner. So we argue that a just transition to a circular economy is crucial for two interlinked reasons. First, to defend the future of decent work, and second, to enable unions and the broader climate movement to forge a sufficiently powerful alliance to force governments and employers to comprehensively implement the circular economy in construction. This is a quote from the Victorian Trades Hall Council that wrote a report about a just transition. It sums up what's at stake. Without workers and unions playing this leading role, we risk either climate or economic breakdown or a transformation that's authoritarian, gives priority to the interests of capital over workers, and replicates the economic, social, and political injustices that we find ourselves in today. Now, the study is very much a preliminary investigation, scoping the sector. What is the sector? What is the construction sector? And what is its workforce? In the next stage, our research will be scoping the conditions of possibility for a just transition in the Australian housing construction market. Now, there's some baseline challenges here. Analysing the building construction industry and its transition to a circular economy, it's very complex. It's distinguished from studies from the renewable energy sector in a number of ways. Its outputs, for example, the energy sector, renewable or not, is structured to generate fairly regular output, either during the day or for 24 hours a day. The building construction sector, in contrast, operates iteratively, one output after another, one building after another, through a complex supply chain. Now, here's a diagram of a complex supply chain. But the value chains are more complex in building construction than energy production. Building construction covers housing, office buildings, hospitals, cultural and sporting centres, but it excludes civil infrastructure such as road, rail, bridges, internet networks, and heavy engineering projects. So it's the construction of buildings for people. The industry, at least in the advanced economy, is experiencing two shocks in its value chain activities in the next period, right now and in the next few years. Firstly, all activities and technologies are increasingly connected onto the one digital platform. And secondly, the processing and manufacturing value chain activities here, with the red thing come up? Yeah. Sound really good with this. Is significantly increasing. A recent industry report from the US predicts the modular construction market to balloon in value to $110 billion by 2025. Another report says many major international builders plan to cut down their on-site construction costs to 25% of their costs by 2025. So there's a shift from what you would expect the construction of a building to be, the on-site thing, back to manufacturing. So there's a move back to manufacturing. Now, the workforce, a major challenge for organising a just transition in the building construction workforce is the wide range of work relationships and tasks it's composed of. The processes of designing, planning, constructing and maintaining a building includes labourers, trades, landscapers, architects, etc., etc., etc. Each job category is subject to employment contract regulation, often being disconnected partially in inadequate ways. Subcontracting building work is common, poorly unionised, and frequently uses sham arrangements to put construction workers on lower wages and conditions while they're just working there alongside regular wage workers. There's also a highly unionised and militant workforce concentrated on nearly all major building sites, the CF and EU. However, the building unions in Australia only cover 14% of the workforce. Another challenge is data. It's a technical challenge of cross-analysing occupational categories in the Australian Bureau of Statistics with industry categories. Because, for example, labour hire companies are considered to be part of the service industry. But there's 2 or 3 of the largest construction companies in Australia that are listed on the stock market employ the majority of their workforce through labour hire companies, some of which they partly own. And so trying to analyse the workforce through the ABS has been a challenge. We've done some more detailed or digit analysis on that. But here I'm only going to give 2 graphs to give a broad brush to the argument I'm putting forward. One is the question of gender, class, and racial divisions. They're likely to hamper any social movement union connection with the broader climate justice, refugee rights, and women's movements. You see here that there's a massive gender gap, but it's also increasing. This is from 1986 to 2021. So the gender gap in the construction sector, if you have these crude distinctions of workers, professionals, managers, is increasing in those areas. And the ratio of managers to workers has more than doubled in that period of time, 11 to 23. And the subcontracting out of work has mainly often focused on temporary visa holders, and the union campaigns against these temporary visa holders, especially on 457 cases, has fostered racist attitudes in the building sector. And it's only been recently some of the major building unions have been defending some precariously employed temporary migrants. The employers and the government are projecting, here's a projection of expected demand for labour in the next 5 years. They do this every 6 months or so. There's still no acknowledgement, very little acknowledgement there of the changes of the move towards manufacturing, down up the supply chain, or the questions of the need for a circular economy in the sector. You could see that the sheet metal workers at the end there, there's a tiny bit, there's going to be an increase there, but overall, there's no real recognition. The implications, and I'll finish on this, is we argue a just transition for it to be ecologically sustainable will require the leadership of the trade union and climate justice movement that faces a difficult challenge in the construction industry. The rapid integration of the modular market is going to throw up challenges and opportunities. With the digital platform coming through, it could help, theoretically, integrating circular economy principles throughout the construction chain. On the other hand, the further upending of employment, disruption of employment relations, jobs, and by introducing CE practices on top of these other changes that are going on, is likely to increase tensions in the union movement between the manufacturing unions and the construction unions, the offshoring issues involved in manufacturing, modular construction. It's going to throw up Australian jobs for Australian work for Australian jobs. And so it's going to foster a national sort of feeling that it's on its right wing, has a racist edge. And the question of gender equity is hardly even being raised enough in the construction industry. And if there's going to be a social movement union approach to fighting for a just transition, the question of gender equity in the construction industry is an absolute issue that they need to deal with. Our next study and I'll finish on this, is to flesh this out, bring it into a political economy analysis, to talk about the issues of the state and to bring it all together. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.